Well, we're back in the game that the Fed plays with the stock market every so often, where the Fed starts to panic because things are overheating. They start talking about tightening and tapering and raising interest rates, yada yada. Everybody ignores them for a while, and then when it looks like they're actually going to go through with some of it, the stock market panics in its own right, tanks, and then scares the government into taking it all back. So we've been through several of these in the last, say, decade and a half, and every time it's played out the same way. So investors should, assuming it plays out the same way this time around, investors should, first of all, be very worried about their stock portfolios, because in order to cause the Fed enough angst to get them to take back the tapering, stocks have to fall in a panicky way. It has to be a scary drop in stock prices that looks like it doesn't have any obvious end in sight. And that's the thing that causes the Fed to cave. So you might have to expect that with your stock portfolio. And precious metals investors might have to expect that gold and silver get pulled down, although that hasn't happened yet, which is nice. But in previous episodes like this, they've been pulled down too. Gold and silver have gone down along with stocks. And then the Fed gives up at some point, starts flooding the system with cash again. Some of that cash goes into financial assets and precious metals, and everything goes back up. If you time it right in gold and silver, you can make a lot of money because their moves tend to be very exaggerated because they're such small, illiquid markets compared to tech stocks or utilities or energy companies or whatever. So we have another chance again, for anybody who missed getting in at the very bottom of the last few cycles in precious metals, you might have another chance again this time around. But I think the really important thing about this iteration of the game is that it might be the last one, because this might be the time, with inflation rising, normally you would expect the Fed to be adamant about raising interest rates and tamping down inflation. So if they cave with inflation still 4 or 5, 6% on the official gauges and 10 or 11% on the unofficial but more accurate gauges, that means they're giving up. There's no chance of controlling the decline in the value of the major currencies out there, because to do so would break the financial markets.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
When everybody figures that out, that there's no adult supervision anymore in the financial markets, then all hell will break loose. And that's when you want to be loaded up in real assets. You want your farmland by that time. You want your rental house. You want your energy stocks. You definitely want your gold and silver, because those are the things that money will pour into when everybody else realizes that there's nothing left to prop up the dollar and the euro and the yen, and that the Fed is going to have to ease into inflation. And that's just all there is to it for as far as the eye can see. I think that eventually there's going to come a time when we just give up on fiat currencies because it's clear the central banks can't support them anymore. And if the Fed starts easing while inflation is still, ridiculously high by the standards of their targets, then that might be the time, and then if we just give up on dollars and euros and all the fiat currencies, the whole concept is liable to fall into disrepute, then that's the end of those currencies as we know them. There might still be things with those names out there afterwards, but in the monetary reset that kind of has to flow from this, we may go back to a time when the world's currencies were just names for given weights of gold. The dollar was 1/20th of an ounce of gold. That's what the dollar was back in the day. And we might have to just do that. We might just have to go back to something like that. So yeah, we'd still be using something called the dollar, but its reality would be that it's a name for a fractional amount of gold. And what happens in a currency reset is that you, and this is the best case scenario where the governments of the world act rationally instead of just have the market force this on them, when they just declare that this is the change that's going to happen. We're going back to a commodity-based currency. It's going to be on these terms. Your previous dollars are going to be devalued by X amount, so that gives us a big burst of inflation. In other words, prices of many, many things go up in terms of dollars, which means the people who trust the government and hold a bunch of dollars going into that are the ones who get hurt. And the ones who see what's coming, get out of their dollar-based investments in time and into real assets, they make out, And so it's kind of a trap that government incompetence and avarice is setting for regular people who aren't paying attention to this.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Marco Stan, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Marco Stan.